There we go. Right. So just welcoming you guys back. Just to remind you just about the online etiquette. We are recording as well. If you're not happy with that, just turn your camera off. That's fine. I can see everybody is visible. Use the chat as much as you want, or put your hand up and get involved with the discussions. Okay. So looking back on what we've talked about, we kind of reflected back on what categorized the drug, what defined the drug, and where we stood against the legalities in this country and in our society. We then also touched base a little bit on terminology, and we spoke about how if we are unsure around the terminology, we should then contact external organizations such as like Frank, that myself and a colleague have just been talking about here, because the language that is used is, for better terminology, street language. It's live language, and it is regional to some extent, and it is also coded to some extent, to ensure that people within the environment that is related to drugs and sustaining that environment know what they're talking about, rather than people getting wind of things. The very clear obvious to that is people like ourselves who are professional understand that happens, and therefore we educate ourselves. And the biggest gang in our country, the police, are ahead of the game 24/7 anyway, so they are fully aware of this language. But hey, it's used. The other angle to it is that it's a branding, and it's a way of marketing and branding, especially illegal substances, to be sold and bought, and therefore encourage people to transfer their money over to criminal activities and criminals. So off the back of this, we want to just have a bit more of a closer look on the three that we've identified as potentially, and not completely encompassing, but potentially are the three which are more likely to come across our candidates, or more likely to be in with our regions. And that was forms of cannabis, forms of cocaine, and different types and forms of ecstasy, including MDMA. So if we break down and look at the signs and symptoms of the three different types of drugs a little bit more. So within cocaine, how does it make people react, behave? What happens to them? So for people that aren't aware, most users react in a way that enhances who they already are. So they become more chattier than they would normally. They become more animated, and potentially some would say overconfident, to the point of it becoming arrogant and restless in their behavior. It then affects people, as always, like all drugs do, slightly different. Okay, so some people, they become aggressive, and they would become increasingly sexual in desires and tensions and things, which can then lead to very poor decisions and choices, whether it be down an agitated, violent route, or aggressive route in all types of behavior, not just sexual, or even into poor choices and poor decision making, which then could obviously lead to further health implications, or even like pregnancies and things. Apparently, again, we're looking at facts from professionals here. The cocaine influence in our society is relatively high, and it is aimed at what you would class as more affluent people, although according to the research we've looked at, that the potency of the drug is going up and the price of the drug is going down. Again, I wouldn't argue either way on that, but we just need to be aware of, could we recognize behaviors, especially if we're looking at a change in behavior for one of our colleagues, one of our family friends, or hopefully not, one of our candidates, and the behaviors of that. Okay. So looking at one that we definitely know of, we've had experience of, and we have ongoing experience at definitely our training centres, potentially due to self-medicating, or even more of a kind of leisure and a relaxed nature to it, is cannabis, different forms of cannabis. So how do people behave? Well, again, this is just a overarching view, because everybody is a different and individual person, and there is so many different types of drugs that we're looking at, including cannabis. There is different forms and there is different potencies. So it can make some people a bit chatty, giggly again. A common one is the paranoia that kicks in, and when people are acting paranoid through sustained use of the drug, they become paranoid about people, why they're asking, why are they acting paranoid? And it's a vicious cycle where it can kind of take over a mental capacity, and it can make them very confused, very anxious, to which then they will revert back to the drug again, thinking this will calm them down, this will ease them, this will clear their mind a little bit more, when actually, just like cigarettes and nicotine does, it is the cause. Okay, it does the opposite. So some people may experience mild hallucination or a change in blurred vision, dragging vision, depending on the potency. Very unmotivated, not just lethargic in feeling tired or feeling that physical, but the will to achieve, the will to go and complete things becomes diminished. They have real problems with concentrating. Okay, and where it says new learning or information, they're talking about retention. Okay, so holding on to short-term memory, retention of new information during periods of cannabis use is quite difficult for them. It is associated through science studies that is targeting areas of the brain which inhibit us from retaining information, which is very poor, especially when we think about potentially some of our 16, 17-year-old learners who are, for better terminology, self-medicating with that. And we in our position, our roles, we're trying to change behaviors, we're trying to encourage new experiences and new information and new ways of looking at things. That frustration, again, could be due to potentially drug use and that cannabis use. So understanding that may well be doesn't mean we accept it. It just means that we don't change or lose the will to keep repeating, to keep reinforcing, to keep structure. Again, I thought it was quite a good quote to put in there, but it's been linked to exam achievement, because it imparts the brain, again, which is used by young people, and they're still developing. So like a network and of synapses firing, if the brain has a block to a certain area for whatever reason and it's inhibited, and if those neurons are not being used, then they will cease to grow and develop. So they will remain at that position and they'll become stagnant. And if they are not used, it is very much difficult, the older we get, to kind of reignite that area of the brain. Okay, it is not dead, it is just not firing at its function at the levels it should be. So the longer the sustained period of use with drugs, the higher and the more long-term effect, or sorry, the greater or the long-term effect would be. And the final one we're just going to touch base with is ecstasy, or a powdered form, which would be classed as MDMA. So ecstasy is, as you hopefully are aware, and if you're not, it's a kind of an hallucinogenic, and it's also a inhibitor. It makes you increase your heart rate, it makes you increase your body temperature, and your energy increases, your heart rate dramatically, causes your blood pressure to increase. And the difficulty with MDMA is that the powdered form, it is much easier now to mix whatever with that form of ecstasy, okay? Whereas before, a solid tablet form, you needed the equipment to at least press a tablet. That is no longer needed if you are consuming it through a powdered form or a mild crystal form, which then means, as we have seen across the country, that understanding what's in it, albeit you hope, is very difficult, because from a tablet form you still don't know what's in it, but the assumption is that you can recognize the branding, you recognize the color of it, and then the consistency of that. Whereas if a powder form, it's very hard to change a tablet and put it back together again, whereas powder, you don't know. And this is a real danger for anybody, really, especially our younger people. What happens behind that? Well, we get real physical changes with this kind of chemical enhancing, this manufactured drug. So we get the famous dilated pupils and the famous gurning, okay, and the grinding, the biting. Apparently the tingle sensations kick in, and again, that's due to the raise in temperature and the raise in heart rate. So it's all these reactions of physiological, because of it being part of our body, our chemical reaction is changing, okay? Any questions regarding that? I think a good point to raise here, even though it's not on the slides, is that there is this kind of fine balance between giving good advice of what to do when taking ecstasy and it turning into the worst. Ecstasy basically will stop you from urinating. Okay, it stops the production of urine, which means that you cannot pass out the water that you're putting in your body. So yes, it's very important for people who take it to stay hydrated, because they are high temperatures, high heart rate, they are moving erratically, they are sweating, they're losing water, okay, they're becoming dehydrated. But if they drink too much water, they tip over the very fine line, and that starts affecting their salt levels. So as much as dehydration will kill them, too much water will kill them just as quick. And that makes it quite a gamble, basically, and understanding that. All right. Really good advice on the Frank website regarding that. It goes into detail, and as the title says, it is frank and open. It gives you the facts against that. So if you hear of, know of, or have suspicions of anybody in and around these kind of 3 drugs, encourage them to not just take your word for it, but go to the website. No judgment. Go to the website, become informed, understand what will happen to you if. What will happen to you if the police, what will happen to you if you're caught, or if you get a bad batch, or somebody's not telling you what you're actually taking. Okay, so general signs then. Let's get you guys involved a little bit. Question 3. What do you think could be the general signs of a candidate possessing or being around drug taking? So that could be affiliated with it, purchasing it, selling it, taking it. Take a couple of minutes, okay, now, jot some notes down or just give it some thought. What would be the signs of any age of your candidate? What do you think you would see? What could you hear? What might you read, witness, whatever it may well be? Okay, if I give you 30 seconds then, and then we'll go around and I'll choose at random, I think. So the question, just to finish off then, so what do you personally think could be generalized signs of somebody in and around drug substances, drug misuse? Okay. Let's see here. What do you think, Matt Wilmot? What do you think, Matt? Have you got anything to contribute? What would you say could be?
If they're like twitchy.
So twitchy, what, as in physically twitchy, or like edgy like themselves, jumpy, a bit edgy, jumpy, bit paranoid? Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of nervous on edge.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. There's a few nods going around the gallery here. Yeah, that's good. What would you say, Matty Vine? What would be something that you?
Something I normally pick up on is what they're wearing. So,
brilliant.
Hoods, caps, new clothes, for example.
Yeah, very much.
An extra pair of jogging bottoms. All could be things that you could possibly link to. But
yeah, excellent. And again, not that we'll go into it now, but that links very much to other training we've done in the past, doesn't it? Around not necessarily just taking or using drugs. It's the other side to that, possibly being involved in the criminal activity of that. Okay, brilliant. Let's just see randomly. What would you say, Beverly?
Disregard to personal hygiene.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think if people have been in and around an environment where potentially someone's on the verge of that or involved fully with that depending on the severity, that could be quite an obvious one. Yeah. Okay. Just aware of the time. Thank you for the contribution. Let's just pop down again. It's not extensive, but this is something I just wanted to give you something to base your thoughts on moving forward. So I thought if we could categorize it into a change in behavior. So we talked there with Matthew about they've been jittery, a bit on edge, maybe their mood, their energy levels, or even their attitude towards you, themselves, and everything on the planet, or whatever in between. Brilliant. Beverly mentioned it there. We could change in appearance as well as Matty Vine. So hygiene is a big one. Doesn't necessarily mean what we instantly go to, which is a negative. Okay, poor hygiene could be the opposite. I've worked with a few people in the past where it was obvious they were trying to disguise smells. Too obvious. It was like walking to a perfume counter with far too much spray being used every 2 minutes. But it's looking at why are they doing what they're doing, and very much so. Clothing, new trainers is the big one. New coats is always a go-to. Expensive kind of single items. But again, are they unkept within that hygiene? Is their clothing demonstrating burn holes or like really dirty where they've been sat on the ground or splashed in and around the ground? And then finally, injuries, their appearance within an injury. Have they fallen recently? Is there unexplained marks in and around hands and face and things like that? Okay, moving on then. So increased wealth. We're not just looking here about misuse of a substance. We're also looking at being involved with a drug or substance from other forms. So there are people that may have been involved with the purchasing or selling or whatever it may well be, and not participating in the use itself. Sorry, Matthew, you got your hand up, mate.
Just on this increased wealth, the idea of having 2 phones.
Fantastic. Yeah, brilliant. So we're looking here around technology. I think it comes up a little bit later as well. Again, looking at more to do with the criminal acts around the drugs, being able to have a burner phone, multi-use of SIM cards, the reason for wanting those numbers, okay, cash. So we are living in an ever-increasing society where cash is old-fashioned. It is something that you don't necessarily need now in your life because of contacts and things like that. Why have they got especially large denomination of folding cash on them? They shouldn't have it at that age. If they are younger, if they are unemployed, if they are in a position where they are working with us to get back on their feet moving forward, should they be affluent, is what I'm saying. Probably not. Doesn't mean they're involved with anything like this at all, but it is a trigger for us just to have a think. Missing episodes. What do you think we meet? And Matty Vine is very well versed on this, as are a few of the others from the Bedford Centre. Missing episodes are where it's not the fact that they've been ill or they've not turned up or things. It's almost a regular pattern. It's almost a set time, half a day, and there is always an excuse. That is the key. There is always an excuse. You'll never, very, very rarely get anyone saying, I just couldn't be bothered, or I was having a bad day, so I didn't bother. It will always be, I had an appointment here with so-and-so to do so-and-so, and it'll be almost a very well thought out excuse. Multiple phones or SIM cards, there we go, that was already been done. Agitated, recluse or over-friendly. So are they wanting to hide in plain sight? Are they your best friend? Okay, we've had a young lad that I hope is still on the right track, that Matty and Emma Graham worked very closely with a couple of others, and he turned the use of alcohol that he had in his life from being really, really affecting a young man's life into not. And the way he tried disguising it was he wanted to be right up and loud and in your face in a really polite, yes, I'm here, I am not trying to hide, when actually it was a bit too much even for him. And that's where the recognition came from, and the do you know what I mean, checking up bags and things. And then finally, without making any kind of pointing fingers or assumptions on people, if they have got additional issues going on outside of SSG, if they are affiliated with some sort of criminal activity, if they have had a past, if they are going through some really hard times, okay, we just need to be a little bit more aware. We're not going to accuse, we're not going to quiz or question, we're just going to be aware. Because as much as we're talking about these 3 drugs that are illegal, the one that is going to cause a lot of damage, probably more damage to them, is the one that they can buy at every corner store, in every supermarket, and when we're open in the public houses. So it's just about making sure that we can support and then guide to specialists. Okay. So, bit of a game for you guys now. Okay. What I want you to do is take 2 or 3 minutes now and try and match up the picture which refers to the name of the drug, which is identified down here. Okay, so there are 8 drugs of 8 names and linked to 8 pictures. if you do that relatively quickly, have a look at this extension activity down here, where I want you to place the drug into an illegal category that we talked about earlier today. So are they Cat A, Cat B, or Cat C? And then if you're really good, what is the punishment for that? Can you remember? For possession. Okay, off you go then, 3 minutes. I'll just start the clock. I've tried to put a couple of tricky ones in there for you. If you're feeling brave, or if you haven't got a pen and paper and things, feel free to put it into the chat. Okay, minute to go. So 1 to 8, use those words, match them up. If you're not sure, have a guess or do it for elimination. And then if you finish that, have a look at which category would you put it in. The top tier, category A, category B, or category C against legal in this country law. 30 seconds. Okay, guys. Right, brilliant. So I've obviously got the answers, but let's think. Mike, I can see your face. You're in the middle of my screen at the minute. Mike, what do you think the first two are? What have you gone for?
Oh, I'm going to put spice and then roofies.
Radio, good man. So Jeremy, you're on top right for me. What did you put down for 3 and 4?
I put 3 ecstasy and 4 crack.
Okay, thanks. Let's see who else is down on here. Christina, what did you have a go at for 5 and 6?
5 is, I think, spice, and 6 is, I haven't really got a clue, but I would have gone for either, cocaine.
Right, gone for that one.
And spice.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see who else I've asked. Charlie, are you there, Charlie?
Yeah.
There he is, Mr. Clark. What have you got for 7 and 8?
Tricky ones, but I went 7 juice and 8 cocaine.
Rightio. Okay, good. Obviously, it's a stage situation, and we're using slightly different language with things to try and put you on your toes, but good contribution. So let's just have a quick look then. So number 1 was a solid form of cannabis. Okay. But number 2, Mike, you did get right. That is roofies. So
Guys, I've never seen them before in my life, all right?
yeah, tiny small pill, which is dissolved, unfortunately, unwittingly in some people's drink. People will take them, but these are a technically known in the past as a date rape drug as well. We then had, I think it was Jeremy that then said, yeah, number 3, the branded types of different ecstasy tablets, and correct as well, crack cocaine, which has been created and then bagged up. Christina, wasn't it? Yeah. So you put in there spice, which is correct. Yeah, spice for number 5. Okay, very much a herbal style. It was all, for a long time, it was classed as a legal high and things like that. And it's really a dangerous and addictive hallucinogenic, which is ruining people's lives in a lot of places. And I think somebody mentioned earlier on that it has a strong connection to the kind of prison life and things, and where they can become addicted quite easily. And I think it's because of the amount that you need is very little. It's very easily transported, and it's very, very, very cheap. The number 6 is the powdered form of ecstasy, which is MDMA. I thought the little signatures might give that one away. Number 7 is juice. I think, Charlie, you had a gamble on that one, which is good. So juice is a common name for steroids. And then the final one was cocaine. So I just tried to ensure I got some money in there, because a high proportion of our banknotes in this country are tested and they come out positive with traces of cocaine. And I'm not going to quote facts because I've not got them to hand, but it was done a couple of years ago in London and it was very high. So if you got any of those right, brilliant, give yourself a gold star tick. So the real important stuff now, guys, our procedures. So what do we do if we have suspicion of somebody being under the influence, in possession, or being influenced or involved with drugs, stimulus, illegal and legal? Let's face it that way. So let's just remember about alcohol, because on our code of conduct, which every candidate and staff member abides by, there is 0 tolerance to alcohol, and even though it is legal, and there is a 0 tolerance to smoking on site, even though it is legal. You've got to be in a certain area and things like that. So we just need to, that'll be one end of the spectrum, all the way through to somebody actually being under illegal drugs or carrying something they shouldn't be. So first thing, and always proactively communicate with our guys. Okay, so we are like our behaviors, where we're trying to get in before conflict even happens. We're constantly refreshing them, reminding them and informing them about our code of conduct. So, do you know what I mean? When the sun shines, make hay. You know what I mean? We want to make sure when things are going well that we are reiterating these messages and these behaviors that we want. So don't wait for some suspicious act or you to think you're picking up on signs to actually confront people and groups to say, remember, we've got this on your induction. Well, I'm just reminding you again. And are you aware that this website is here and it gives you the information about the pitfalls of taking drugs and so on and so forth? We then go into the suspicion element being there. So we follow our stop and search process. If you are new, please do not panic about that. It is available for you to read. If you are in that position, you will not be asked to perform a stop search until you are trained. Okay, and the training is really simple. It's just about following the guidance and being confident in what you don't do as well as what you can do. Okay, so if you are having suspicions of somebody possessing drugs or being under the influence of drugs, the common one is the smell. If you think you've got a potent smell, or if there is any other banned item, then you would follow that process. If it's not a here and now, you will have a opportunity to book them in. So have a word with your line manager and say, we'd like to do this cohort and random stop search. So preserve any evidence and submit it into your line manager. So don't be tempted to think, I need to get rid of this. It's illegal. I'm going to dispose of it. Okay. As innocent as you guys all are, That's fine. Don't make that mistake. Okay. What you need to do is confiscate it and tell your line manager that that's what you've done and hand it over as quick as possible. All right. As long as you do that, then that means that you're covering yourself from anybody making false allegations against you. Okay. It also means that we can double check what that is. Okay. So if they've got prescription drugs on them and you do a stop search, that's fine. But are you reading the name on the label? Is it theirs, or have they purchased it from somebody else? Do not assume. Try your very best not to judge or even place any personal opinions on the situation. Okay? Try and just listen and support if you can, and make them feel like you're the one listening, they're the ones talking to you. If they're reluctant to give you information, this is where we go back into the other side of our training. But what do? Well, we allow them to talk about what it is. Because ultimately, if they are on board and engaging with us at SSG, they're halfway there to wanting help if they are using drugs. Or at least being in a position to understand that these are my options if it goes wrong. So maybe I want to change the way I live outside of SSG. If they are not, and they are criminally active, then let's face it, guys, they're not going to be in any form of education very long. And they're potentially not going to have their freedom for very long. Okay? I'm trying to suggest that people may use this who need support rather than are making an intent of criminal activity. That's, although it's there, I'm thinking more the support side. Okay. As always, it's a statement that we leave on there. We'll always follow our duty of care for all candidates. And our duty of care may mean looking after others because this person is doing X, Y, and Z. Okay. Where needed, we will involve the authorities as standard practice. So I'm not saying this at all has happened or will ever happen, but a little bit of weed on somebody there who's having a bit of a bad time, okay, they are carrying a class B drug, breaking our code of conduct, they are breaking the law. If we allow that to go undetected, unchallenged, and actually I'm going to turn over here in a blind eye to that, the whole of SSG is vulnerable. That's everybody's job, and more importantly, every candidate that we support, every child in swimming lessons, everybody we help in this community, we will not be here. Because if people start to throw mud, it will stick. So we are a substance-free training establishment. Do we have people that have that in their lifestyles? Yes, 100%. Certain people in this room definitely know that because we are trying to support people to change their lifestyle. And we can do that as long as they are not in possession or under the influence coming in. The final one is what I've just said. If they are not breaking the law or influencing another person. Okay. Any questions about that? No, I know it's late, guys, so I'm not going to hold you down to divulging the ins and outs. The final one, how can we support? I'd imagine you probably know this and are doing this already anyway, and I'm sure that we're seeing it as best practice. Challenge, okay? Parenting is about boundaries and challenging for youngsters growing up. People that are breaking the rules are one or the other. They either know they are or they don't know they are. So if they don't know they are, they need reminding and telling. Otherwise, they're going to continue to do it. If they know they're breaking the rules, we need to tell them we know. And this is the code of conduct. So make a choice. Okay. Do not promise anything. think back to your safeguarding training, okay? Even though this is not, and this is behavioural, this is an act around suspicion and stuff, do not promise them that you can make it all okay. Do not promise them that the police are not getting involved or you're not going to call their parents. You can't promise those things, okay? So don't put yourself in that position. The easiest statement you can say is, everything that we do here at SSG is to help you. So if that means that we've had to call the police, it's because that's going to help them, okay? Whether they believe you or not, that's down to the individual themselves. But don't stick yourself in a position where you're sat at home later on in the day thinking, oh, why did I say that? Okay. Provide factual information, advice and guidance. The best way to do it, guys, is what we've talked about earlier. There is this website, look at that. There is this, read this. If you're not sure, we're going to get this person coming in as a guest speaker who's an ex-addict doing this. Okay. As you do that, there is one here, there it is, which you need to be really professional about. Do not, underlined, I would have put it in capitals and red, but I didn't want to insult people. Do not share both ways. Okay. Understanding them is okay, but comparisons are not. Okay. Our natural reaction, like we do when they're feeling vulnerable, is to say, I've been here with you. I've been here. I know how you feel. Let's do this. This is what's likely to happen and stuff like that. I know things are tricky at the minute. Lost a job. I've been there. Finances. Yeah, I get that. But when it comes to this kind of act around substance abuse and things like that, I need you to understand that you are professional employees and you need to protect yourself and the badge that you're wearing. Okay. Might be difficult for some people because you are openly caring and things, but don't feel that the way that you can make a link with people going through a rough time is to empathize and demonstrate that kind of, I've been there, I've done it. Don't let your guard down. Okay. Does that make sense? I know it's coming across quite forthright, but I've seen it happen. I've seen it in another establishment where they've done nothing wrong really, but then they've ended up facing a couple of questions later on about having to say, well, why did you say that? And can you prove you haven't done that? Okay. Right, so record the situation down in facts and details. Where possible, inform the candidate that this is happening and ask them to review and sign. Again, if possible. Very realistic with this, guys. This is the ideal world where Danny Burke comes and sits down going, can you give me a helping hand with this bottle? I don't want it anymore. Right? That, there's a chance there that I'm going to sit with you while you write a few things down and go, yeah, I fully agree and sign it. Okay? The chances are slim, but if you can, get them to be involved with that. Same as any other document that we talked about in CPOMs earlier and other behavioural reports, statements. We need to be able to show what we're writing and why we're writing it. Seek support from management, senior leaders. I think that's a given. Okay. And then contact external professionals. So again, you notice how that's the last one. Okay, we do everything in-house first because you will either be guided and you're saying, I am happy to call this person or I'm happy to contact the Samaritans or this drug counselling. You'll be given that kind of choice because we're talking about externals here. You're not sat there as tutors thinking, do I call the police? Because I've just found this bag of cannabis on this person. Okay, you will have gone to your management, whatever that position is, sought advice or clarification, and then either somebody else will do it or you will be instructed to do it. All right. Yeah, good. There's a few nods there, which is great. Okay, just opening it up now if there is any questions. If you don't want to talk out loud, write them in. If not, that's perfectly okay. All right. Brilliant. Okay. So, as always, let's just recap. I'm hoping here, if we were to revisit what we've done throughout the day regarding this part 1 and part 2, A to E, I asked you to kind of mark your confidence, 10 being amazing at something, as in, could you spot the signs and symptoms and the effects? What would you give yourself out of 10? Now we've had these 2 discussions, could you just grade yourself again? And then if you have come across a negative, as in, I've gone from a 7 this morning to a 6 today, can you add it in for me into the comments box and we can have a conversation afterwards? Likewise, if you think you've really improved or you've had some clarity around this, that's good feedback to have as well. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for your attention. You know where we are if you need any further talk or discussion about things. It's not the easiest of subjects to have to listen to and go through, because we've got to be really professional about it. But there are on there, as you can see, a few of the websites and the resources that I've used for this, researched. This is saved in the CPD Padlet, and then hopefully the recording will be uploaded onto our YouTube as well, so you can have access to that after. Okay, guys, thanks for listening.
Danny, just one thing from Christina, just in the chat box, I think.
Oh, okay, apologies. Yeah.
And from Victoria as well.
Yes, so Victoria, Christina, another form of terminology of all drugs died in is the word food. Yeah, I think my limited understanding, Christina, around food is linked to the criminal side to it, as in purchasing side. So if you are organised crime or selling drugs, people who are involved with that on the fringes may well call that food, as in they're living off of that and they're able to take it as forward payment, move it on to someone else, knowing that they've got to pay back the main people who are running that dealing. Again, that is my limited knowledge of where I've heard that from, but I will look into it a little bit more. Victoria, I thank you for attending today. What will happen is, yes, we are legally allowed to search, and the training that we run in-house with our amazing Emma Graham, normally heading that up, walks through step by step everything that people need to know, how to do it, what to say and what to do. But the answer very quickly is yes, we are legally allowed to stop search and also confiscate if we need to. But as you would imagine, that's a very, very difficult and delicate situation. So we train people around that as well.
In the meantime, Victoria, as well, we'll get Emma to share you the YouTube link, because there might be some support on there from previous training sessions. But like Danny said, Emma will touch base with you specifically on that. But just a couple of bits there for you in the meantime.
Sure. And as well, part of that, Victoria, is I'm reading between the lines here, if you're welcoming to the team, the first either planned stop search or you are being a bit cautious and suspicious about something, you will seek support, and your kind of line managers will talk to you about that as well, because wherever possible, we want more than one person there. Okay, thanks again then, guys. Appreciate it. I'll hang on if anybody needs me.
I need you.